Tyler raised his phone and started recording, stepping slightly forward for a better angle during the sacred ceremony at Arlington National Cemetery. "Okay, TikTok, we're at this military thing and check out this dude," Tyler whispered loudly into his camera, pointing at the sentinel from the 3D U.S. Infantry Regiment, the Old Guard. "He's been doing this robot walk for like 10 minutes. Watch this. I'll show you how ridiculous this looks." My 16-year-old grandson started mimicking the sentinel's precise 21-step march, stiff-legged, exaggerated turns, making faces into his camera while hundreds of visitors watched in horror. The crowd gasped. Veterans stared. A Gold Star mother clutched her folded flag tighter. The sentinel's voice cut the air. "It is requested that everyone remain silent and standing." Tyler laughed. I, Samuel Washington, retired Army colonel, took out my phone and made one call. "Martinez, it's Sam Washington. I need the brothers at Arlington. Family situation." 25 minutes later, car doors thudded across the parking lot. 5 men stepped out, not in formation, not in government SUVs, just old friends answering a call from their former commander. Tyler's smirk faded as men with unmistakable military bearing walked toward us. How did a family reunion become a reckoning? To understand that, I have to take you back. Before I continue, where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments. If honor, courage, and sacrifice still matter where you are, hit subscribe. I'm Samuel Washington, U.S. Army, RT. I'm 72, and for the past 3 years, I've raised my grandson Tyler after my daughter Michelle died in a car accident. This isn't just another spoiled kid tale. It's 3 generations of service, a legacy of sacrifice, and how close I came to losing what I'd fought to protect. Before guardianship and teenage rebellion, I was Colonel Samuel Washington, 1st Infantry Division, Republic of Vietnam, 1968-1970. I led 180 men through brutal fighting. Most came home. The rest still visit me in my dreams. My best friend was Staff Sergeant David Rodriguez from San Antonio. He saved my life in an ambush near Da Nang. 3 days later, he stepped on a landmine while leading a patrol to evacuate civilians. He was 20. He never met the son his girlfriend carried. When my daughter was born, I gave her David as her middle name, Michelle David Washington. When she had Tyler, she continued it. Tyler David Washington. 3 generations carrying a hero's name, a hero my grandson never asked about. You should know something about my family. My father wore a uniform too. He worked harder than hard, fought in an America that didn't always love him back, and still told me, "We put our names on the doorframe and on a set of dog tags, son, not because they let us, but because they couldn't stop us." Black service runs through our family Bible, penciled names, quiet dates, folded church programs. The uniform didn't make us who we were, but it revealed it. After Vietnam, I didn't talk about the war. Some stories are too heavy for the people you're trying to protect. I built a civilian career in defense logistics and stayed close to my old unit. At home, I was just Sam in faded army shirts. Then a drunk driver took Michelle. 13-year-old Tyler moved in. Grief and guilt make terrible parenting advisors. I overcompensated. Too much freedom, money instead of boundaries, smoothing problems instead of consequences. I let late nights slide because silence felt easier than a fight. I let half-truths go because I couldn't bear to watch him flinch at another correction. When he started filming the security guard at the grocery store, making a joke of the man's weight and walk, I told myself, kids these days. When he posted a teacher's stutter for laughs, I told myself it was just a phase. Then the jokes turned into content, and the followers multiplied. He grew an audience mocking authority, boomers who think they're heroes, old military guys need to get over it. He found power where teenagers always have, where it's easiest, tearing down, dinners turned into battles. That video was disrespectful, I'd say. It's just content, Grandpa. Nobody cares about ancient history. He called it ancient history, men like David Rodriguez. The Last Straw, a TikTok mocking PTSD, 2.3 million views. He wore my service like a costume in that one too. Saluted wrong. pretended to flinch at fireworks, captioned it Boomer Trauma LOL. I stared at my bronze star and purple heart and planned one last attempt to reach him. Memorial Day at Arlington, at David's grave. My old unit meets there sometimes. 5 of us left, honoring the 14 who didn't come home. Lieutenant Carlos Martinez built a defense firm that hires veterans. Bob Johnson retired a colonel after the Pentagon. Dave Williams advises on policy. Bill Thompson became a high school principal after retiring as a sergeant major. Rick Chen runs a contractor that puts veterans on job sites with respect and a paycheck. I hoped seeing real leaders might reach Tyler. The night before, I tried again. Tomorrow matters, I said. I want to tell you about the man you're named after. Cool story, he said without looking up. I'm going live. People are waiting. I should have demanded his eyes. Instead, I said, we'll talk at Arlington. The morning came and brought the small rituals that used to live in my bones. I brushed lint from dress blues I'd promised myself I'd only wear for funerals and the boys' reunions. I touched each ribbon like a bevel on a headstone, remembering the names behind every colored strip. Silver star, bronze star with V, purple heart. Then I breathed, lifted my chin, and buttoned the jacket. Tyler came down slow, ripped jeans, a no-rules, no-limits shirt, $300 sneakers I'd paid for with the money I told myself was a boundary. He glanced at me and smirked. Why are you dressed like that? People will think you're trying too hard. Today we honor the fallen, I said, including David Rodriguez, who died so you could wear what you want and say what you think. He rolled his eyes and filmed the ride, mocking my military cosplay. The worst part wasn't his words. It was the laughter bubble in his voice when his phone lit up with hearts and flames and strangers cheering him on. At Arlington, we passed the eternal slopes of white stone that have a way of straightening your back for you. A man in an old field jacket took his cap off as we walked by. A little boy asked if soldiers sleep standing up here. His mother smiled and said, "No, baby, but their stories do." I tried one more time. There are over 400,000 graves here. Show respect. Respect for dead people? They can't see me. Their families can, veterans can, I can. We reached the tomb of the unknown soldier for the 11 a.m. changing of the guard. The sentinel's steps were exact, 21 south, pause, 21 north, honoring those who never came home. The crowd fell silent. My grandson did not. He hit "Go Live" and started the mockery, the moment you saw at the start. That's when I made the call. Sam! Sam Washington! Voices from the crowd. 5 men approached, posture straight, eyes alert. Leaders, the kind that don't have to raise their voices to be heard. Carlos got to us first. "Sam, talk to me." Behind him, Bob, Dave, Bill, Rick, men I'd bled with who still wore their decades like a quiet rank. "Gentlemen," I said, "meet my grandson, Tyler David Washington." They glanced at the scene, then at him, then at me. The way their faces settled told me they understood more than I wanted them to. Carlos addressed him, calm and firm. "Son, what did you do?" I was just making content." "You mocked the tomb of the unknown soldier," Bob said, still every inch a colonel. "That tomb represents every service member who died without recognition, including some of ours." Bill added, "That sentinel maintains a vigil that's continued for over 90 years. You turned it into entertainment." A cemetery police officer approached, professional, composed. "Sir," he said to me, noticing the way the men around me deferred, "we have a serious disruption." I nodded. "Officer, this is my grandson. I brought him. He needs to understand consequences." Tyler panicked. "Grandpa, you won't let them arrest me, right? You know these guys." "Tyler David Washington," I said. "You're 16. Old enough to choose your content. Old enough to face the consequences." "Son," the officer said, "you violated conduct rules at a national monument. You'll need to come with us for processing." As they prepared to escort him, he asked, "They all came because you called?" Carlos answered, "Your grandfather pulled me from a burning helicopter under fire. When Sam Washington calls, we answer." The live stream that had laughed at him mocking the sentinel watched him go quiet as real life took the microphone away. Within hours, the video was everywhere. Arlington kid, Dug tomb guard disrespect. Military grandfather. Some comments were cruel, some were righteous, a few were merciful. The internet loves a fool most of all. 2 hours later we sat in an administrative office. The AC hummed like a distant engine room. Tyler's hands shook in his lap. "Given your age," the officer said, "and poor judgment rather than malice, there's an alternative to formal charges. 75 days of community service here at Arlington, grounds and education. No phone while you work. Report times are strict. You'll learn what this place means." Tyler looked at me. I didn't rescue him. "Face it like a man," I said, "or face charges like a fool." He chose service. We signed papers that felt heavier than their pages. When we stepped into the hallway, a woman in a blue blouse with a cemetery badge waited with a clipboard. "I'm Ms. Jenkins," she said. "Grounds and education. You'll start Saturday." Ms. Jenkins was the kind of black woman who has kept communities upright since before America admitted how much it needs them. Efficient, no nonsense, a softness you had to earn. "Rule 1, she told Tyler, "you hand me your phone at the start of each shift. Rule 2, you don't teach anyone anything until you learn something. Rule 3, we don't step on the grass unless we have to, and if we have to, we do it with reverence. Clear?" "Yes, ma'am," he said, surprised to hear his mouth form the words. She nodded. "Good. See you at 0600. That's not content time, that's honoring time." That night the house was too quiet. Tyler's bedroom door was open, which meant he wanted to say something, but didn't know how. I stood in the doorway. "Why didn't you tell me you were a colonel?" he asked, staring at the dark. "Because rank doesn't make the man, character does. I didn't want your respect for a title. I wanted to earn it. And David, the guy I'm named after, was really your best friend." So I told him. The ambush, the landmine, holding David's hand while a medic whispered numbers that didn't matter, the letter to a pregnant girlfriend explaining how a hero dies on a Tuesday that should have been ordinary. "He was 20, Tyler, your age. I've been mocking what he died for," he said. "Yes. I'm sorry. Sorry isn't enough. But it's a start. You'll earn your way back." He nodded, and for the first time in months, left his door open all night. Day 1 of service, 0545, the air hung cool, grass silvered with dew. Tyler handed Ms. Jenkins his phone without being asked. She dropped it into a lockbox and snapped the latch. "Good sign," she said. "Load out." They started with section 27, rows of headstones so exact they made your eyes believe in measurement again. Tyler learned the tools: a bucket, a soft brush, clear water, patience. The rules were precise, because respect is a practice, not a feeling. "Don't scrub like you're trying to erase a mistake," Ms. Jenkins said. "Lift the soil, don't gouge the stone, names matter." He worked slow, then steady. Wind moved through trees like pages turning. He read names, he whispered some. He followed Ms. Jenkins' habit of straightening flowers people left and restaking small flags when they drooped. Mid-morning, a man in his 70s shuffled up with a cane and a plastic bag. He watched Tyler for a minute, then said, "You're the boy from the video." Tyler froze. "Yes, sir." The man nodded at the headstone he'd come to tend. "I come every week. My brother's here. He died in '69. He couldn't stand people whistling near him after he got back. We didn't have a name for it then. Just called it Jumpy. Don't let a phone make you forget a man is a man." "Yes, sir," Tyler said again, this time softer. By noon his back ached in places teenage boys don't know can ache. Ms. Jenkins handed him water and a sandwich. "You're not here to punish your body," she said. "You're here to carry a little weight that isn't yours." The days formed a rhythm. Early light, quiet work, learning. Week 2 brought Mrs. Eleanor Patterson, 86, blue cardigan, stubborn dignity. Her husband died in Korea at 19. She'd been married 6 months. She carried a gentle brush and a jar of flowers like sacraments. "What was he like?" Tyler asked. "Like you," she said. "Young, full of energy, thought he knew everything. But when his country called, he answered. He wasn't perfect, but he was brave and kind." Tyler listened, phoneless, unarmored. Something in his shoulders eased. Week 3, Ms. Jenkins assigned him to the education center for a day. He greeted school groups and handed out maps. He watched a short film about the tomb and the old guard 6 times and didn't look away. It explained the 21 steps, the 21 seconds, the relief commanders, the relentless training, the badge awarded only after months of unblinking precision. When the narrator said the guard's vigil has never ended, not for weather, not for war, not for a power outage, Tyler swallowed hard. At lunch, a young soldier in a crisp uniform sat next to him. Not a sentinel, another old guard soldier on duty that day. "You the kid?" he asked without malice. Tyler nodded. "You learning anything?" "Yes, sir," Tyler said. "I didn't know. I thought it was a show." The soldier nodded. "It is a show, but not for us. For them." He tilted his head toward the rows. "Every step is a sentence in a language not everyone wants to learn." Tyler sat with that a long time. Week 4, Ms. Jenkins sent him to Section 60, the resting place for many who fell in Iraq and Afghanistan. Before he stepped off the pavement, she put a hand on his arm. "Walk like you're entering somebody's living room," she said. "There's grief here that sleeps light." He saw photos taped to stones, challenge coins, crayon drawings sun-faded to ghosts, little bottles of hot sauce on one grave because a wife remembered everything. A woman in a hoodie sat cross-legged, talking to a headstone like she had errands to report. One Gold Star mother touched Tyler's sleeve. "You're the young man doing service here?" He nodded. "Good," she said. "My son believed in second chances. He'd like knowing his sacrifice taught someone about honor." He didn't trust his voice, so he nodded again. She squeezed his hand. That night he Googled how to address a Gold Star family and learned what the pin meant in a way that made his stomach ache. Week 5, he worked a funeral route. He didn't carry the casket or step into formation. He stood back, out of the way, with a small crew whose job was to ensure the family had water, shade, and a clear path. He watched a flag fold into triangles so crisp it looked like it might cut you if you touched it. He watched a bugler lift a horn and pull taps out of thin air from somewhere that sounded like the middle of the ocean. On the ride home, he didn't play music. He watched houses and trees and people doing ordinary things and understood for one long minute how much of life is ordinary because someone else carried the weight. At school, whispers followed him, some mean, some curious, some admiring. The principal, Mr. Harris, a calm man with a firm handshake, called me in and asked if I'd be open to Tyler speaking at an assembly once his service was done. "Only if you vet it," I said. "No free stage." "Agreed," he said. "I think he might help some other kids leave their phones in their pockets a little longer." At home, Tyler started asking questions, not just about a war he once called ancient history, but about our family. The nights my father worked 2 jobs and still ironed his church shirt. The way my mother kept a ledger of every prayer request people brought to her, written in pencil so she could erase and write, answered beside a name when God did what only God can do. The way Michelle used to collect coats for kids every October without making a big moment of it. The way Black Service doesn't always wear a uniform and still counts. I told him about David in more colors. Not just the hero who saved me, the friend who couldn't dance but tried anyway, who could fix anything with wire and a cuss, who called his girl Mi Cielo in a voice low enough to make you miss your own people. The promises we made. If I go, you go home. If you go, I get your letter to whoever needs it. Nobody left behind. Week 6 brought a wreath-laying ceremony for a unit anniversary. The old guard moved the way rivers do, like they've always been here. Tyler watched mothers and fathers place flowers, watched men in suits and women in Sunday dresses stand straight as if the ground itself demanded it. A chaplain said, "Love doesn't end when a life does. It becomes what we do next." Tyler wiped his eyes with the back of his wrist, like boys do when they want to pretend it's the wind. Week 7, Ms. Jenkins put him on a different kind of duty. Flag restoration. Tiny flags come back from storms, bent or broken or with colors bled by rain. You don't throw them away. You retire them properly. Tyler learned the ceremony. Quiet, careful, no fanfare. He asked why they did it when nobody sees. "Some things we do because we know it's right," she said, "not because there's an audience." He didn't say a word for 10 minutes. When he did, it was only, Yes, ma'am. The internet had moved on to new outrage by then, but not everyone forgets. A local veteran group wrote an open letter, firm, not cruel, about respect. A teacher asked him to apologize in person to a class he'd mocked online. He did. He stood in front of kids who once thought he was the cool guy and said, "I was wrong," without trying to spin it. A boy in the back row clapped once, loud enough to be awkward, then the rest followed. Not everyone stood. That's okay. Real apologies are not democracy. Week 8, a school bus pulled up with third graders for a Memorial Day program that got rescheduled after a storm. The education coordinator asked Tyler to help guide them. A little girl with beads in her braids asked why the stones looked the same. So the rich and the poor, the officers and the privates, the famous and the regular folks are honored the same way, he said, because the ground doesn't play favorites. She nodded like he'd said something wise. He made a decision right then. When he got his phone back after shift, he wouldn't clip that for views. He'd keep it for himself. Week 9, Ms. Jenkins gave him a new task. Write down 5 names a day and look up their stories in the archives. Tell me one thing about each that isn't a rank or a ribbon, she said. A hobby, a favorite food, a hometown. Make them people again. Tyler read about a medic who taught himself to play the harmonica in between missions. A pilot who hated coffee but drank it anyway because he liked the way it warmed his hands. A cook who mailed recipes home from overseas with measurements in handfuls because a handful's a handful anywhere. He told me about them at dinner like good gossip. I started telling him stories back, some about the war, some about the years after when the real cost comes due in quieter ways. Week 10, the officer who'd processed Tyler's case stopped by the education office to check in. "You getting what you came for?" he asked Tyler. "I didn't come for it," Tyler said, "but I'm getting it." The officer smiled. "Fair enough." That weekend, Carlos invited us to a Saturday cookout at his place. "Not a victory lap," he said, "just meat and music and men who missed your laugh." Tyler showed up in a polo and jeans that didn't cost a car payment. The men welcomed him like uncles do, tease first, then feed you, then ask what you're learning. Rick made him flip ribs. Bill asked him about school. Bob watched the way Tyler listened before he answered. Dave, who's been neck-deep in policy for years, told him how benefits become laws, become lives. Later, when the sun went soft, Carlos brought out a shadow box he'd made. In it, a photo of David and me in a jungle we thought would never let us go, a reproduction of the Purple Heart, a scrap of a map, and a blank card. "What's the blank for?" Tyler asked. "For you to write one sentence about what you owe and to whom," Carlos said. "You don't have to read it, just write it." Tyler stared a long time. Then he wrote. He slid the card in. We didn't ask. He didn't tell. That's how some promises work. On his final day of service, Tyler asked to return to the tomb. We stood where he'd mocked the vigil. He wore a suit and kept his phone away. The sentinel marched, 21 steps, 21 seconds. You wouldn't think counting could make you cry. Sometimes it does. After the ceremony, he waited until the quiet held, then approached the rope. "Sir," he said, voice clear, "months ago someone disrespected this tomb. I want to apologize for anyone who treated this place as anything less than sacred." The sentinel gave a small nod, like a benediction. Tyler tried a salute, imperfect, sincere. The sentinel returned it. Something tight in my chest that had been clenched since Michelle died loosened one click. That evening he posted a new video. Not for clicks, but because he wanted to speak differently. He sat in front of a plain wall, no background music, no jump cuts. He said, "I thought mocking a soldier would make me famous. Instead, I learned real strength builds others up. I met a widow who still brings flowers 60 years later. I watched a mother lay a wreath and tell me her son believed in second chances. I learned why the old guard takes 21 steps, because some honors are worth counting out loud. And I learned my middle name belongs to someone who saved my grandfather's life. I want to earn it." It got fewer views than his pranks. Better comments. Veterans thanked him. Parents showed their kids. Teachers played it in class and let the quiet after do the teaching. Tyler kept creating, but he turned the camera toward others. He recorded veterans' stories at the VA. No trauma voyeurism, just what they wanted to share. He sat in barber chairs and let old men talk about the day they shipped out and the day they came home and what changed in between. He interviewed a woman who drove Red Cross clubmobile trucks in Europe, and a man whose only medal was for perfect attendance at mess duty, but who kept an entire unit fed when supply lines went bad. His following dropped, then rebuilt smaller and stronger. The algorithm doesn't always reward dignity. Real life often does. He partnered with a charity that builds ramps for disabled veterans and used his platform to raise money without making it about himself. He learned to hold a camera steady when other people's hands shook. When he began asking about service academies, I didn't push. I asked him why. Because leadership is deciding who you are before things get loud, he said, and because I want to carry weight that isn't mine on purpose. We trained quietly. Mornings in the park, push-ups and runs, not for the views. Bob helped him understand the nomination process. Bill wrote him a recommendation not because he's my friend, but because he saw a boy choose. Last Memorial Day, we returned to Arlington to meet my old unit. Tyler wore a tie and carried flowers for David. He thanked each man for serving and for not giving up on me. Carlos smiled. Your grandfather never gave up on us. That's what leaders do. At David's grave, Tyler kneeled and placed the flowers. The headstone reads, Staff Sergeant David Rodriguez, United States Army, and a row of marks that mean more than most words. Tyler stood at attention, not perfect, but true. Thank you for saving my grandfather, he said. I'll try to be worthy of your name. We stood in a quiet that wasn't empty. I told Tyler about the first time David and I met. 2 kids with 2 big packs and a map that didn't care about our plans. How David sang off-key to keep me awake on overnight watch. How he made a candle out of a crayon and a match during a monsoon. How bravery doesn't feel like a movie while you're doing it. It feels like your hands shaking and your feet moving anyway. On the way out, we passed a family eating sandwiches on a bench. The little boy from the first trip, maybe not, asked his mother again if soldiers sleep here. She said, They rest here, baby. Rest is different than sleep. I thought, yes. Rest is when the people who love you finally get to set down their worry. At school, Tyler spoke at that assembly. 20 minutes, no jokes. He said, The internet gives you a voice, it does not give you wisdom. You get wisdom by listening to people who carried weight you didn't. Some kids rolled their eyes. Some leaned forward. One teacher cried, which he didn't notice until later. The local news did a short piece, nothing flashy. They asked me what changed him. I said, consequences, and people who refused to let one bad moment be his whole story. They aired that line. People called to argue both sides. Ms. Jenkins left a voicemail that said, Good answer. Tyler started mentoring kids who went too far chasing clicks. A boy who put a firework in a mailbox. A girl who posted a fight she could have stopped. He didn't preach. He told them about the sound a violin makes when taps is played in a hallway because the bugler had to leave for another service. About the way Ms. Jenkins says names out loud before she starts work in a section. About a woman who sat cross-legged at a headstone and told her husband all the ways their daughter looks like him now. Sometimes the sentinel from that day crosses my mind, the one who spoke the request for silence. I don't know his name, and I shouldn't. That anonymity is part of the honor. What matters is that when disrespect kissed his boots, he didn't break. He stayed steady so the rest of us could decide what we believe. I promised you this was a family reunion story. It is. Not just blood. The kind of family forged in mud and memory and meals shared while standing because the ground was too wet to sit. The brothers who came because I called. The women who keep the names. The people who mend fences you didn't know you'd broken. The old guard who carry a vigil so the rest of us never forget our end of the bargain. Every Memorial Day, 3 generations of service meet at Arlington. David in his grave, me with my memories, Tyler with his future. The sentinel still marches 21 steps. The unknown rest in honor. And my grandson finally understands some things are sacred and some lessons require real consequences. If this story made you think differently about respect and sacrifice, subscribe. In the comments, share a veteran's name we should not forget and a moment when consequences taught you more than a lecture. And to the families who carry an empty seat at the table, thank you for your strength. We see you.